south of the Michigan Theater.
Oh, okay.
Or is that, no, State,
Is that Liberty?
no, Liberty Dead Ends there. This is Northview.
Just, okay. Oh, I know where you're talking about. Yeah. Is that where the, that was where Ulrich's used to be?
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to call the April 9th, 2018 Shelby Township Planning Commission meeting to order. First item is roll call. Secretary Moore.
Yes, Mr. Dallo?
Here.
Ms. Tesico? Here. Ms. Casali? Here. Mr. Apone?
Here.
Mr. Wozniak?
Here.
Mr. Turner?
Here.
Acting Chairman Turner? Mr. Chairman Moffett is absent. We have a quorum.
Thank you. I'll act as well as I can. First item on our agenda is approval of the actual agenda for tonight.
So move.
Support.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Approval of our minutes from March 12th, 2008 meeting.
So moved.
Support.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. First item under correspondence is a letter from Ryan Kelly regarding property at 13341 and 13355 22 Mile Road. Mr. Nguyen?
Thank you. This site is you may have some familiarity to the commission. It's on the north side of 22 Mile Road, just west of the G&B Plaza at Shaner Road. And there's two what appear to be office buildings, but they were originally built as daycare, and at one time we approved a Montessori school there. They were vacant for some time. Mr. Kelly had approached us about wanting to purchase this site and asked whether or not we would allow a pediatric therapy clinic there. And my response was it certainly didn't seem unusual or different from what the previous uses was. And we chatted for a while and suggested that the long-term use would probably be best suited by just rezoning it to professional office so that the use matches the way it's developed and the zoning map. And he seemed amenable to doing that longer or mid-term, but immediately he was interested in purchasing the site and wanted some assurance that we'd allow this use. And in my view, the answer would be yes, why not? It's certainly a similar use. I know Mr. Kelly's here if he has something else he wanted to add, but I think that's a fair request, and I would support that. I just wanted something on the record that would validate it for his records and for our records.
Mr. Nguyen, if we approve this without rezoning, and we say we give our permission for him to use it, what incentive does he have then to rezone it?
Well, he doesn't really have any. We could initiate that. We could initiate that too, and it may be something that we should just do.
Okay.
There's no reason. The township can initiate that, and if there's no objection, it make the process go simple, a little quicker.
Okay. Is Mr. Kelly here tonight? Can you come on down? When you come up, state your name and address for the record.
Yes, Ryan Kelly, 48778 Salt River Drive, Chesterfield Township, Michigan.
Mr. Kelly, I have a pretty easy question. In your letter to us, you say you want to get it over there. Purchase the property, would move your current pediatric therapy business into one of the buildings. What would you do with the other one?
It would still be a rental, whether it's a daycare. There's a 2.5-year lease still left on it as a daycare. Future, by rezoning, it would open it up to another office for me. I'm just a private owner. I'm just looking for, to have an income on that and not be limited to a daycare in that other building if the time came.
So you want to use the one and possibly lease out the other?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Any other commissioners have any questions or comments on this?
Mr. Turner,
Mr. Dallo, go ahead.
these two buildings, they right by where we live, and it's really very hard to give them other zoning beside the office, so it will be a lot of kind of time saving for the applicant and us to move on and zone them to an office use. And he will have more opportunities in the future for other leases.
My understanding is that we're not rezoning, we're just giving him permission, Mr. Nguyen, is that correct?
Pardon me?
Sorry. My understanding is we're not rezoning, we're just
No,
permitting it?
we're just permitting that
At this
use and
point.
then looking long-term to,
Okay.
we could initiate the rezoning if we wanted to in the future.
Okay, very good.
Maybe after Mr. Kelly takes ownership of the property, you could communicate to us and then we could slot it in at an appropriate time. This is one of those situations where the map should match the use of the
Right.
property.
I agree. Anybody else have any comments? If not, a motion would be in order.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead, Ms. DeSico.
I'd like to make a motion to permit the use of property at 13341 and 13355 22 Mile Road for a pediatric therapy business.
Support.
Moved by Commissioner DeSico, supported by Commissioner Rapone. Any questions on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call the roll. Commissioner DeSico?
Yes.
Commissioner Rapone?
Yes.
Commissioner Wozniak?
Yes.
Commissioner Moore?
Yes.
Commissioner Casale?
Yes.
Commissioner Dallo?
Yes.
And chair votes yes. Motion carries. You're all set. Good luck. Moving on to our site plans. First, we have a final review of a site plan number 18-09 for James Ferns. It's property south side of 24 Mile Road, east of Shelby Parkway, 11 industrial site condominium development. The applicant's here? Come on down. You can't see it, can you?
No, that's all right.
Okay.
I've seen it.
As long as they can see it.
Don't
No, you
turn
can't
it.
turn it because our camera's back there tonight only, so. You got it, guys, back there? Okay, we're good.
Good evening. My name is Kurt Anderson. I work for SME. I think my address, hang on, I gotta look this up. 13019 Pauline Drive, Shelby Township, Michigan, 48315. Here tonight representing MCAT Properties. I have read both Mr. Wynn's review letter as well as Fazil Khan's review letter. We're really here to answer any questions you guys might have. I think you summarized the development. It is a 40-acre site. It's private roads. It's going to be developed as a site condo. You can see the detention basin and the 4 bays that we're providing for stormwater management for the facility. And then as this thing actually gets developed, each one of these units will come in for site plan approval. So this is kind of a fictitious development of what it looks like, but the road is going to be real and the ponds are going to be real at this point. So the only issue I really have, or at least question, would have been on the private road relative to the sidewalks. We are proposing a 7-foot walk along 24 Mile Road on the south side adjacent to our property, but internally we weren't proposing anything. I guess I'm not clear on the ordinance on that that's a requirement or not.
We'll get some feedback on that for you.
So I do have Eric Buchermel, who's our legal counsel with me tonight, so if there's anything relative to master deed, bylaws, or anything else, he's here to answer any questions and go from there.
I'll just make one clarification. It's not a fictitious development. It's a real development, but it's a concept. I just
Right,
want to clarify
concept,
that.
sorry.
Okay. Mr. Wynn, go ahead.
You're approving the layout of the,
exactly.
not the building. So this is a second two-step, typically a two-step process. The preliminary is when you approve the layout. The second step is to confirm that everything is the same as what you approved previously, but more important, to verify that all the engineering comments, all the permitting has been accommodated by various agencies and our engineer, as well as the master deed. And you can see there's the letter that our engineer, Carol Thurber, presented gave a table showing the summary of all the approvals, which we hadn't gotten before, and this is a really helpful review to keep us track. So what Mr. Anderson's suggesting is, this is consistent with what we had before. The requirement for sidewalk, we have them in some industrial developments, some industrial we don't. There is a sidewalk on 24 Mile Road. It's really, I think, a matter of preference. Do we want one internally or not? I don't think it's all that critical in this situation since it's not residential. A couple other site plan notes that we wanted added to the plan, but indeed, they've reached this point where all the approvals have been granted or will be granted. The last item is we will need them, our attorney, to sign off on the master deed, which hasn't been done yet, but that'll be one more step in the process. But they're ready for the final approval, Mr. Chairman.
Question I have is, I went through 29 pages of the drawings they provided, and I didn't see any showing any renderings. Do we typically not?
No, because there's no building shed.
Right.
So it's, we wouldn't
that
get those until they
individually.
come in with the building plans.
Okay. Any other commissioners have any questions?
I do have a
Go ahead,
quick
Commissioner
question.
Moore.
Probably directed more towards Mr. Wynn. As far as the sidewalk, the continuing of the sidewalk, wasn't that kind of our goal, to connect, to make our township more pedestrian?
And there will be a sidewalk on 24 Mile Road across the frontage of the site.
Oh, I see,
It's just
okay.
the sidewalk into the interior along that private road.
Okay,
But yeah, absolutely, there will be a sidewalk on 24 Mile
Okay.
Road.
thank you.
Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Mr. Wozniak.
would, Mr. Nguyen, were there any other comments regarding that interior sidewalk from any of the departments?
No.
No? Okay, and it's not a requirement on our part.
No, it's one of those situations where in industrial, we've gone both ways. You know, when you have, if you go down Shelby, well, Shelby Parkway is a public road, but where we do have the public roads, they're typically, you do have sidewalks, but some industrial subs don't have them. I think since this is a private road, it might be a little different.
Guess I'll go for a consensus. Is there any feeling that we probably should not have a sidewalk? How many would think we should? I guess I should ask it that way. Anybody want a sidewalk internally? If not, we can just give a recommendation now that we don't have one.
No. I got one question for the petitioner,
I
Mr.
think that
Chairman.
answers that question, but okay, go ahead, Mr. Wozniak.
Did you or your attorney leave the word residential in the articles, the bylaws on purpose, or?
No, I would think not. Mark Abdo actually produced the documents, but that seems like a mistake. Yes.
Okay. Very first sentence.
Very first sentence?
Yeah. Thank you.
Anybody else? Mr. Nguyen, do you have anything else you want to
No,
add?
nope.
Okay. Motion would be in order.
I'll go.
Go ahead, Mr. Wozniak.
I move to approve the final condominium plans for James Fern Shelby Corporate Park Site Condominiums, number 18-09, subject to the submission of a revised site plan addressing applicable department comments.
Support.
Motion by Commissioner Wozniak, supported by Commissioner Moore. Any questions or comments on the motion? Hearing none. Commissioner Wozniak?
Yes.
Commissioner Moore?
Yes.
Commissioner Opone?
Yes.
Commissioner Dallo?
Yes.
Commissioner DeSico?
Yes.
Commissioner Casali?
Yes.
And chair votes yes. Motion carries. You're all set. Thank you.
Nice call.
Moving on to site plan number 18-10 for Michael Magnoli. This is Crimson Court. It's south of 26 Mile Road, west of Van Dyke. It's an extension of Crimson Lane, 15 detached, single-family condominiums. Oh, they left already. Okay, they didn't sign in, but okay, make sure you sign in too. I forgot to say that. Good evening. State your name and address for the record.
Good evening, John DeLislo with PEA, representing the Crimson Court Development, Crimson Court LLC, 15-unit site condo, which has received engineering approval recently, and all other approvals for construction permits. We are also working with a developer that is fronting on Van Dyke for access. That agreement is also in place for construction of the 15 units without having to bring the construction traffic through the neighborhood behind it. And we're also in receipt of some comments relative to some increased landscaping along the north side of our development, which the developer has agreed to supplement what is already on that plan. So if there are any other questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Okay, Mr. Nguyen, you want to go
Well,
ahead?
he answered all the questions.
I know he answered mine too.
This is the same stage of the process, and John, very competent engineer, they knew what they needed to do next, and they've done it all.
Okay. Any other commissioners have any questions or comments? Hearing none, motion would be in order.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Mrs. Casali.
I move to approve the final condominium plans for Michael Magnoli Crimson Court Site Condominiums, number 18-10, subject to the submission of a revised plan addressing applicable department comments.
Support.
Motion by Commissioner Casali, supported by Commissioner Opone. Any questions on the motion? Hearing none. Commissioner Casali? Oh. Come on down. Sure. The briefer, the better. Go ahead.
My name is Nicholas Douglas Lane, 56260 Crimson. My property is directly adjacent to the residential development, and I'd like to start by saying I support this residential development. I'm happy that it's going in. So with that being said, my concern is with the access drive. There's currently an access drive from Van Dyke on the commercial property. And if you were to continue that access drive, it would be directly along my property line from my back corner to my front corner. And I have 2 small children at my house. So with construction traffic for 15 homes passing by my entire property, I would like some kind of barrier in place for, excuse me, for protection. And that would be it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Does anyone else wish to say anything? Okay, with not, Mr. Nguyen, comment on this access drive with the barrier on along the property line.
I think, Mr. Chair, I think there was one, then I'll answer.
Looking at you, I thought you might want to.
Right, yeah, I just,
No, wait till, Mr. Lane, did you sign in too, by the way? You can do it later, that's okay. Just make sure you sign in.
hi, my name is Amy Trudeau. I live at 7550 West Pearson, so the development would be just south of my home. And I just wanted to publicly thank Mr. Nguyen. He's been informative, gracious, and kind throughout this whole process. It's heartbreaking to see the field cleared and annihilated is the word I would use. And it's going to be even tougher to see them when they take the topsoil and everything like that. And I understand everything, and I understand I can't have a hand in it, but I did just want to publicly thank Mr. Nguyen for answering all my questions and just being very kind about the whole thing. Because obviously, I'm on a little street. I'm not that important compared to the big developments going in, but it feels really nice to be valued in that way. So I just wanted to publicly say that. I appreciate the extra trees going in especially.
Okay, thank you. Make sure you sign in too, by the way. And you are valued and you are important. Just want to make that very clear for the record. Mr. Nguyen, go ahead.
Let's talk about construction traffic. John, maybe you can address this. There's 2 types of construction. The first level would be installing the roads and the underground utilities. And that's where we really wanted to make sure that there was construction access from Van Dyke so it doesn't come through the neighbor subdivision. Once that's done, then the house construction occurs. That'll be sporadic. It won't happen immediately. That's when they will be able to use the local roads. I think the comment from the residents appropriate, and maybe there's a way you can provide some physical barrier there to kind of separate them so that, you know, their property is maintained and there's safety for his children. I'm sure we can work something out.
Sure, I know they'd be agreeable to it. And one of the first pieces of construction will be a water main along that corridor, so that's where the first construction is going to be. But as soon as they can get away from there, and I don't think they'll object to a snow fence or some type of. That would be this, yeah.
A visual barrier. John, could you
I will
maybe
ask them
send
to
me
do
a
that on-
detail of what that looks like, and I'll be happy to share it with you. So before you leave, put your email address down there. We'll be happy to do that. So that's a fair and reasonable comment.
We'll bring that up at the pre-construction
Okay.
meeting too. So.
Mr. Nguyen, on the construction, once they do start the building of the homes, could that cause some damage to the internal roadway?
It's a common practice, so at that point, you
Okay.
know, subdivisions are built and they, you know, those roads are meant to handle that traffic as long as it's not
Constant.
excessive. I mean, they, you know, all subdivisions can do that.
Okay, very good. Anybody else have any questions or comments? Hearing none, a motion would be in order.
Mr. Chair?
Oh, wait, right, do we already have a motion on that? Yeah, we have a motion on that already. I'm sorry.
That's right.
Next one. We have a motion by Commissioner Casali, supported by Commissioner Rapone. Anybody else have any questions or comments? Hearing none. Commissioner Casali?
Yes.
Commissioner Rapone?
Yes.
Commissioner Wozniak?
Yes.
Commissioner Dallo?
Yes.
Commissioner DeSico?
Yes.
Commissioner Moore?
Yes.
And chair votes yes. You're all set. Motion carries. Kelly, don't forget to sign in, too, before you leave.
Yep. Yeah, the underground.
And our final site plan for tonight is site plan number 17-51 for Fadi Saman, West Utica Apartments, east side of Ryan Road, north of West Utica, 80 multiple family units. Come on down, sir. State your name and address for the record. Make sure you sign in when you're done. You can do it after.
Joseph Eglica from Gateway Engineering, 8155 Ansbury, Shelby Township, Michigan. So we are here for site plan approval for 80 apartments on Ryan Road, north of Utica. And this project has been on our books for almost 2 years because the property is 80% wetland. So, and what we did is we kind of reverse engineer the process. We went to DEQ first to see exactly what we can and cannot do, and then we're here presenting our site plan. So I'm here to answer any questions. I saw some comments from the engineer, and those were comments that were back in November. I don't think they had an opportunity to revisit our plans in the second submission. All of those comments were addressed, including the water main. We're looping the water main to the apartments to the east. I'm here if there's any questions. We updated a landscaping plan, and there's a couple of variances that we're gonna need, but that's only due because of the restrictions that we have with the natural features of the property itself. We're trying to impact the wetland as little as possible. So as you can see, it's a big parcel, and everything is gonna be concentrated in the upland, portion of this project. We have resolved our underground storm sewer problem that we had. We're gonna have to raise the property, and we kinda, like I said, we kinda reverse engineer this. We went to the county, we went to all the approvals before we came back to the city to make sure that we were able to do what we wanted to do. So at this point, I'm just here to answer any of your questions, if you have any specific questions.
Okay, Mr. Nguyen?
Chairman, we have just a few comments left because they did modify the site plan considerably. Items number 1, 2, and 3 in our review letter are variance items. Buildings 3 and 4 back up to the portion of those back up to the eastern property line. There's a 50-foot perimeter setback, and they are asking for relief from that, again, due to the fact that their building envelope's a little restricted. 2 of the buildings, 3 and 4, we have a maximum length of 180 feet. They're at 192. That's a little less uncommon variance. It's based on more building design, and the intent of that is not to get these overly long buildings that don't have any visual relief. And you can see from the elevations that's not the case here. There's a lot of variation in the front facade, which limits the applicability of that variance. And then the last one, which I'm a little more concerned about, is the parking. 159 spaces are proposed, 174 required. So there is potentially a concern there, but these will all have to be addressed through the variance process by the Board of Appeals. 7-foot sidewalks are required along Ryan Road. The fire department had a couple comments. I did note we do need to have the building elevations labeled for material. And then last week we got a comment back from the Department of Roads that they are requiring a bypass lane on Ryan Road. That's all we had, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. I didn't get your last name, sorry.
Baglica.
Vanglica?
Yes.
Have you note in your comments to us, the MDEQ approval for work within wetlands is in the process. Where does that stand?
We got a favorable, we met with DEQ on the site. We have Asti Environmental doing our DEQ permit application. It looks like once we have site plan approval, we can go forward with actually the permitting. So at this point, we have a favorable answer from them. We're trying to not use any wetlands. The only wetland mitigation we're gonna need is the road, the access road, and there's, on this upper corner here, just to add some extra parking, we had to get some wetland mitigation going in that area as well. We're a little less than an acre of wetland mitigation at this point. So we conform within, the DEQ standards.
So they've given you approval to build within the wetland to fill it, to put the road in?
They gave us a preliminary
Approval.
favorable opinion.
Okay, and now the parking issue, you're building up there in the northwest section to put in more parking, and yet you're still 15 spaces short.
Correct.
Mr. Nguyen, if they addressed the property line issues by making the building smaller, they might pick up some parking, and that may help with the easements, wouldn't it?
It possibly could.
Just one building, I think two buildings have, they're only 192 versus
180.
So it's 12 feet?
Yeah, I guess it's a
I mean, you would only gain 12 feet, which would be one parking space, so it wouldn't do anything for it.
It would help. I mean, the 15 spaces short in a parking or an apartment complex could be significant because it's very transient population and people come and go all the time.
I understand. The only other thing that we could do is impact more wetland, but that's what is,
No, we
we're
don't wanna
trying
do
to
that.
actually not do that. So, taking away 12 feet to an apartment building is not gonna make us gain 15 parking spaces.
Well, maybe you do more than 12 feet, I don't know, to help out with the parking. That's just a comment. Anyone else have any questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead, Mr.
I
Nguyen.
do think the parking variance is a little more challenging than the other two. I mean, the wetlands, in fact, the setback, and it does, the building length by itself isn't an issue if you have a nice design. But I do think that's a little more challenging on this site. And, you know, we did rezone this to R12, and we rezoned something, you know, that's, you know, what you're asking for, and kind of need to try to live within those. And so they have a little more challenging case to make in what the you know, the parking variance justification is.
Right, and you know, you talk about living with what you get. I didn't support this plan from the beginning. I was opposed to the rezoning because I think this section of our township has way too many apartments, but that's just my personal feeling. Anyone else have any comments or questions on the motion, or on this parcel?
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Mr. Wozniak.
if you did supply another 15 spaces, where would you be able to put them, do you know?
You know what, I was kind of looking at this. You know, we can probably add some spaces along this road here that's coming in, because all of this is being mitigated. We have about 25 feet in excess for utilities going in as well. So perhaps, you know, that would be a solution for us to put some parking along that road. Other than that, maybe up here, there's maybe one or two parkings that we can add in this area here.
And you have sufficient handicap already, right?
Oh, yes, yes.
Mr. Chairman, I think, if I may, I think, you know, if you can update that a little bit, try to add more. It's usually that visitor parking that becomes a problem at certain times. And if it's, those other ones that Joe is offering, I think might be useful for that overflow parking.
That's right, that's what I'm concerned about more.
That's a good suggestion.
So if I understand it, the area that you're recommending adding more spaces is, well, the roadway that you have coming in is smaller than the approved area you can fill by the MDEQ. Did I understand that correctly?
If you look at this green area here.
Right.
And if you look at the engineering plans, this is where we're kind of, you know, trying to mitigate that property. So it's not right at the property, it's not right at the building, you know, we have an additional 25 feet. And we have the same thing along that road, making this area here, see where these trees are, you know, we might be able to get some parking, you know, in there, and then maybe across the street here, we can actually make this a little bit.
Might be able to, you should be able to, but that's just my recommendation. Anybody else have any questions or comments on the motion, or on the parcel? Sorry. Hearing none, a motion would be in order at that point.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Mr. Dallow.
I move to approve site plan number 15-51 for Fatty Seman MRFR LLC, West Utica Apartments, parcel number 2307-32301-001, located on the east side of Ryan Road, north of West Utica Road, subject to the submission of a revised plan addressing all the department comments, and offer favorable recommendation for the variances as noted in the site plan comments.
Support.
Motion by Commissioner Dallo, supported by Commissioner Rapone. Any questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman. Yep.
Well, go ahead, Mr.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Mr. Dalla, would you mind adding that as long as the petitioner can provide the sufficient number of parking spaces, the 174, rather than what he has right now?
I don't mind that, Mr. Wozniak. What happened if he's gonna have problem with the DEQ where he wants to put him? Would that's gonna stop the project?
It
or-
didn't sound like it.
No, it doesn't sound like, I mean, there is, in my opinion, to that, there's a lot of new model cars where they don't require the regular size parking, and that probably they could work some areas for smaller car versus kind of putting the applicant into that.
So are you saying you don't mind if we do 174? I mean, that's the ordinance.
Yeah, and they're going for variance for that, I understand.
What I'm saying, I'd rather not have that variance, and I think we should have the parking that we have in the zoning.
And, okay, that's fine.
That's your call. Do you want to keep the variance in there?
I'll add it,
mean, you'll
whatever
remove it.
Mr. Wozniak
Yeah.
wants. Add
You
it.
remove the part about the variance?
Oh, no, they're still
No,
gonna
of-
need a variance on their setback.
Right, oh, that's true.
No,
But you
we-
remove it on the parking,
Yeah. Just-
yes?
we move.
Okay.
Mr. Nguyen?
Yes.
What do you?
I
I'm
think
sorry,
that's
Mr.
fair. I think that's a fair.
Okay. Are you all right, seconder?
Yes.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions or comments on the motion? All right, hearing none, we'll call the roll. Commissioner Dallo,
Yes.
Commissioner Rapone,
Yes.
Commissioner Wozniak.
Yes.
Commissioner DeSico,
Yes.
Commissioner Casale,
Yes.
Commissioner Moore.
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Motion
Right,
carries. Thank
thank
you.
you.
Good luck on the parking spaces. Well, there's a way. Planning Director's report. Mr. Nguyen.
Two items. Darren, we provided you with our administrative approval summary. I think we had 20 signs this past month and 4 temporary uses. And then we did get a site plan. Our engineer prepared a site plan for the new expansion of the police building. I think it's 7,200 square feet. Now, that was, when you approved the original site plan, that was shown on there as a placeholder for the future. So I told the police we could approve that administratively. They did take up some parking, but they're adding more parking, and then they'll connect the parking lot for the police with the court in the back. So it makes a lot of sense, and this was all part of the original approval. So if I thought this was an appropriate administrative approval, but I wanted to share it with the commission to let you know what we had done.
Okay, we appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. That's it.
Any business from the floor? Anyone want to come up? Okay. Hearing none. Mr. Dollar? Motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Support.
All those in favor?
One's 22 Mile Road.
Meeting adjourned. Have a good night, everyone.